Hello, my name is John, and on this episode of the True Solar Library, we're going to be exploring net metering, both what that means at its core definition and why you, as a potential system owner, should understand your utility's net metering policy as much as possible before pulling the trigger on your solar project. At its core definition, net metering can just kind of be thought of how the utility handles the excess power that you send out to their grid. Big, bright, sunny summer day, odds are you're going to be overproducing what your home needs in a given instant. So your home consumes everything that it can from the solar in that moment. Anything produced above and beyond that, again, has to go somewhere, goes out to the grid, and will effectively spin your meter backwards. All utilities have a way of tracking how much power you send out to their grid. What varies slightly from utility to utility is how they credit your account. How do they pay you back, so to speak, for the power that you send out to them? So now that we understand kind of what net metering is at its core and broadly speaking, let's dive into the more common net metering policies. There are three net metering policies here in Iowa, kind of generally speaking anyway. First, there's what's known as traditional net metering, sometimes referred to as annual net metering. That is the most solar friendly. Mid-American Energies and Alliant Energies being the two largest utilities in the state of Iowa, they are obligated by the state to offer this traditional net metering. Still very feasible, just not as good as traditional net metering. There's what's called 100% avoided costs, instant avoided costs. It's got a few different names. And then right in the middle of those two opposites, there's what's sometimes referred to as monthly net metering. This is a little rare here in Iowa, although there are a handful of utilities out there that offer this. This is kind of a hybrid of the two. So before we dive into the details of those three net metering policies, we must first understand one more thing known as the energy offset of a solar system. The energy offset of a solar system is mathematically put is just how much power the solar system produces in a year divided by how much power the home consumes in a year. So if it produces just as much as it consumes in a year, that system would have what's known as a 100% energy offset, which a lot of people, their kind of knee-jerk reaction when they hear that their system has 100% offset means that they kind of automatically assume that it will completely eliminate their power bill over the course of the year. And a lot of times that's true, but also a lot of times it's not true. Because what if your utility's net metering policy, per their policy, they don't give you the full credit for all the outgoing power compared to what they charge you for incoming power? If it's 50 cents on the dollar, you can see how just because it produces the same amount that you use each year, you're going to be sending some power out to them during the day and during the summer. If they only credit you 50 cents on the dollar for that, you can kind of see where there may be some shortfalls there. So depending on the metering policy, that will kind of dictate what ideal energy offset you should hope to get out of your solar system. So here, let's start with the most common of the three, being traditional net metering, sometimes referred to as annual net metering, which again, this applies to any resident serviced by Mid-American and Alliant Energies here in Iowa. So traditional net metering, you will receive a credit on your account for every little bit of power out you send out to the grid at the same rate that the utility would have charged you for incoming power. So you send 1 unit out to the grid, you have a credit on your account equal to 1 unit of incoming power. So under a situation like that, if assuming you have all the roof space in the world and everything, it would be ideal to go with the system that would produce about the same as what you consume each year. So a 100% offset system should be in your best interest there. So the only imperfection with Alliant and Mid-America's net metering policy, and this is why it's sometimes referred to as annual net metering, is that every April, whatever credits you may or may not have on your account will be zeroed out, and you kind of start all over again. So the name of the game as far as how much, what sort of energy offset percentage you should hope to see out of your solar is right around 100% without going too far over. One thing to keep in mind to help kind of further understand how this sort of offset system marries up well with this metering policy, just because it may be hitting that 100% energy offset mark, that doesn't mean that your system is producing enough to cover your consumption each and every month. What that means is that it's overproducing enough in the summer to rack up a good piggy bank of credits to cover its shortfalls in the winter, when again, the days are half as long and the sun's not as intense as it is in the summer. So that's kind of how, even though the consumption and production numbers may differ greatly throughout the year, month to month, a full offset system still can offset your your entire utility bill, even in the winter months. So now that we've covered the traditional net metering, which again is on the most solar friendly end of the spectrum, let's hop over to the other end here with the instant avoided cost, also known as 100% avoided cost metering policy. So with a net metering policy like this, the name of the game is to, at any point in the day, at any point in the year, try and reduce sending power out to the grid at all. Because as soon as the power hits the meter, you can think of it like at that instant, you're getting a 25 cents on the dollar credit or whatever it is with that specific utility. So you want to use it all in real time when at all possible. And to do that, you go with a smaller offset system. Maybe it produces 50 to 60 to 65% of your annual consumption, but that keeps the daily bell curve low enough to where your consumption still exceeds that and you're able to use it all in real time, hopefully. Another way to go solar properly under a utility like that would be to go solar with a battery system, because the battery system is going to be there to capture that excess power potentially produced during the day, and then you can pull from that battery overnight. And that gives you that one-to-one benefit essentially because you're using it all in real time and pulling from the battery overnight. So every little bit that you can use in real time or pull from the battery, that's that much less that you got to pull from the grid at the full retail rate that way. Last but certainly not least is what we refer to as monthly net metering, which is sort of a hybrid of traditional and avoided cost, kind of taking certain aspects of both and combining it into one. So the name of the game under a metering policy like this is to not overproduce on a month-by-month basis. So the utility company is going to look at your consumption versus the solar's production on a month-by-month sort of snapshot. And if there's any overproduction by the solar, that's the only instance where you lose a little bit of credit there, because only at that point will they give you less than that full one-to-one retail level credit. So if you are able to design a system and you have the right sort of usage pattern to where it peaks in the summer, as does the solar, and all you do is just kind of shorten the bell curve in the summer from the solar, with a properly sized solar system at roughly 70 to 80% energy offset, you'll see a lot of one-to-one benefit and a vastly reduced electric bill from the utility company over the course of the year, while still keeping things very, very cost effective. So still very feasible to go solar under that metering policy, much more so than the avoided cost policy. So that about does it for this episode of the True Solar Library. Thank you very much for watching. Again, my name is John. My contact information is right here in this post. If you want to learn more about your utilities net metering policy, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Thanks.